Chapter 2. The Hollows of St. Jude's Asylum for the Incurably Disturbed. St. Jude's Asylum for the Incurably Disturbed was never intended to be a place of healing. Built in the late 1920s out of jagged gray stone and iron-reinforced glass, it sat atop a desolate hill like a brooding gargoyle. By the time I took a job as an overnight psychiatric nurse in 2015, the facility was a relic, a crumbling maze of linoleum hallways that smelled of industrial bleach and unwashed despair. Christmas Eve was supposed to be a quiet shift. In the world outside, families were gathered around crackling fires, the air thick with the scent of pine and roasting meat. But inside St. Jude's, the air was stagnant and cold. The festive cheer consisted of a few strands of brittle tinsel taped to the nursing station and a plastic 1-foot-tall Christmas tree that hummed with a faulty electrical connection. "Happy holidays, Elias," my supervisor Miller grunted as he handed me the clipboard. He looked like he hadn't slept since the previous Christmas. "Keep an eye on Ward C. The storm has them agitated. They can feel the pressure drop." He wasn't wrong. Outside, a nor'easter was slamming against the stone walls, the wind howling like the very souls trapped within the building. I began my rounds. The ward was dim. We kept the lights at 30% to encourage sleep, but at St. Jude's, sleep was a rare commodity. Most patients lay awake, staring at the ceiling, their whispers creating a low-frequency hum that vibrated in my teeth. Then there was Agatha. Agatha lived in room 402. She was 72 years old, a frail woman with skin like crumpled parchment and hair that hung in thin, translucent white wisps. She had been diagnosed with treatment-resistant schizophrenia 40 years ago. Most of the time she was catatonic, but when the moon was full, or when the snow fell, she became active. I reached her door at 2:45 a.m. I peered through the reinforced glass. She wasn't in her bed. She was standing in the center of the room, draped in a thin hospital gown that looked like a shroud. She was perfectly still, her head tilted at an angle that seemed physically impossible for a human neck. I swiped my badge and entered. The room was freezing. "Agatha, it's time to lie down. You need your rest." She didn't turn. Her voice, when it came, was a dry rattle, like dead leaves blowing across a tombstone. "The bells are ringing, Elias. Can't you hear them? They aren't ringing for the birth. They're ringing for the burial." "It's just the wind, Agatha," I said, my voice sounding thin even to my own ears. She slowly rotated her head toward me. Her eyes were milky with cataracts, yet I felt them piercing through me, seeing the marrow in my bones. She reached out a skeletal hand and pointed toward the door. "The boy in the box. He's tired of waiting. He's in the bathroom, Elias. He's unwrapping himself. Go check. Go see the gift he brought for you." A cold shiver raced down my spine. The ward's communal bathroom was directly across the hall from her room. I'd walked past it a dozen times that night. "There's no one in the bathroom, Agatha," I said, stepping back toward the door. She began to laugh, a wet, bubbling sound that turned into a hacking cough. "Check the third stall. He likes the dark. He likes the way you smell when you're afraid." I exited the room, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I stood in the hallway, looking at the heavy metal door of the ward bathroom. Rationality told me to go back to the nursing station, to grab a cup of coffee and wait for the sun to rise. But the silence of the ward was different now. It was expectant, heavy. I pushed the bathroom door open. The lights didn't hum to life. The motion sensor was dead. The only illumination came from the sickly green glow of the exit sign and the distant rhythmic flash of a red aircraft warning light on the hill outside, strobing through the frosted high window. Flash, red. Flash, red. The air in the bathroom was thick with the scent of old copper and stagnant water. I pulled my heavy-duty flashlight from my belt and clicked it on. The beam was a solid white pillar in the dusty air. I scanned the floor. 1, 2, 3 stalls. The doors were all closed. I stood there, listening. I expected to hear the drip of a faucet or the hum of the ventilation. Instead, I heard breathing. It wasn't the breathing of a patient. It was heavy, rhythmic, and wet, the sound of someone struggling to inhale through a throat full of liquid. It was coming from the third stall, the one Agatha had mentioned. I moved forward, my boots squeaking on the linoleum. Every instinct I possessed screamed at me to run, to bolt from the building and never look back. But I was a nurse. I had a duty. If a patient had escaped their room and was having a medical emergency, I had to help. "Who's in there?" I called out. My voice cracked. The sound stopped. I reached the third stall. I knelt down, keeping my light focused on the gap between the door and the floor. I expected to see the white sneakers of a patient or the bare feet of a runaway. There were no feet. The stall was empty. I stood up, a wave of relief washing over me so powerful I nearly sagged against the wall. It was just the pipes, I told myself, just the wind in the vents. But then I noticed the shadow. The exit light was behind me, casting my shadow against the stall door. But there was another shadow overlapping mine, a shadow that was too tall, a shadow that was reaching out. I slowly looked up. A face was peering over the top of the stall door. It wasn't the face of a man. It was a mask of pale, stretched skin with eyes that were nothing but jagged black holes. It was perched on top of the toilet, crouching like a predatory bird. Its fingers, if they could be called that, were long, gray, and ended in yellowed, broken nails that were currently digging into the metal frame of the door. It didn't move. It just stared. The smell hit me then, the cloying, sweet stench of rot and ancient dust. I didn't scream. My throat had seized up, turned to stone. I backed away, my flashlight beam dancing wildly across the ceiling as my hands shook. I hit the door, fumbled for the handle, and burst out into the hallway. I sprinted to the nursing station. "Miller! Miller! There's someone in the bathroom! Someone's in Ward C!" Miller woke with a start, his eyes widening as he saw the sheer terror on my face. He grabbed his radio and called for security. 2 guards, burly men with tasers and heavy boots, arrived within minutes. We went back. We went back to the bathroom. The motion sensor triggered the moment the lead guard stepped inside. The room was flooded with harsh, clinical white light. The third stall door was now standing open wide. It was empty. The guard checked the toilet. He checked the tiny frosted window high above. "There's no way out of here, Elias. It's a dead end. You sure you didn't see a shadow?" I saw a face. It was right there. It was watching me. Miller walked into the stall. He looked at the metal frame. "Well, someone was in here," he said, his voice dropping an octave. He pointed to the top of the door. 4 distinct, deep gouges had been carved into the steel. They looked like they had been made by powerful claws. We went back to Agatha's room. She was tucked neatly into her bed, the sheets pulled up to her chin. She looked like a peaceful grandmother, but as I approached, she opened her eyes. They were no longer milky. They were bright, sharp, and filled with a terrifying intelligence. "Did you like your gift, Elias?" He's been waiting so long for someone to notice him. He's shy, you see. He only shows himself to the ones who are almost ready to join us. I was transferred to the day shift a week later, and a month after that, I left the psychiatric field entirely. Agatha passed away on New Year's Day, quietly in her sleep. They found her clutching a small piece of paper she had hidden under her pillow. It was a drawing, a crude charcoal sketch of me standing in the dark bathroom, with a pale, faceless figure reaching out from the shadows behind me. Underneath, in perfectly neat handwriting, were 3 words: "Almost your turn." I still don't use public bathrooms if the lights are dim, and every Christmas Eve I leave all the lights in my house on, because in the dark, the gifts aren't always what you want. Sometimes they're what you deserve.